The third round of the 2004 Champ Car season took place at one of the oldest operating speedways in the world, the Milwaukee Mile. Although the race title, that being the Time Warner Cable Roadrunner 250, wasn't the catchiest name in the world, the vision of IndyCars racing at this historic venue is always enticing, and this year was no exception. It was certainly going to be a challenging race for the drivers, as despite the race being held in early June, temperatures come race day were around 53 degrees, with 10-mile-an-hour winds making it feel closer to the high 40s. Weather was a slight question for the race, with a threat of rain worrying the paddock. Ryan Hunter-Reay would start this race from the pole, sharing the front row with championship leader Sébastien Bourdais. Reigning Milwaukee winner Michel Jourdain Jr. would line up in 9th, while the last row was taken up by 17-year-old Nelson Philippe and Alex Sparafico, who would be your last place starter. With an abridged pre-race show, we can get to the start of the race. Sébastien Bourdais got a really bad start, nearly going 4 wide into turn 1 and dropping back quite a few spots. But as quickly as the race got started, the yellow would come out after rookie Justin Wilson lost it and hit the outside wall. Thankfully for the Brit, he got away with it fairly clean, as the only things damaged were his front wing, his tires, and his nerves. After just a few laps, the race would get restarted, and while Ryan Hunter-Reay pulled away, Paul Tracy went for some steel balls overtakes around the outside of Mario Dominguez, and nearly around teammate Patrick Carpentier. By the lap 10 mark, Hunter-Reay was already pulling a big gap, up to a second and a half ahead. Another driver who had a great start to the race was Rodolfo Levin, who was having one of his best races to this point. He was usually a backmarker, but was running 5th as we blasted past lap 30. Alex Tagliani, meanwhile, was having a really rough time. He was running well early on, but his car quickly fell out of favor with the idea of grip, and Tagliani dropped back like a rock. Tagliani was actually meant to run a new chassis for this weekend, chassis number 31, but Alex apparently didn't want to run the car because of his superstition towards the number. This call clearly came back to bite him, as in the span of just 10 laps he went from 7th to 14th. As the field shuffled behind and we broke past lap 50, Ryan Hunter-Reay was already 12 seconds ahead of Carpentier in second. Soon after this, Sébastien Bourdais' night would go from bad to worse, as he hit the outside wall in turn 4, giving Bourdais damage that would end his race. The yellow flag was then flown and a flurry of pit stops came from it. Ryan Hunter-Reay came out with the lead again, while Rodolfo Levin was a slightly quicker pit stop away from taking the lead himself. However, Levin's night would have a slight derailment after this, with Levin having to serve a drive-through penalty. For what reason is unclear, as the coverage on Spike TV only mentioned the penalty about 50 laps after the fact. After some laps under yellow, the race would get back underway, but for Tracy, things wouldn't last very long. His aggressive nature on these restarts would get the better of him, as when Tracy tried to get the move done on his teammate, he hit the marbles and crashed. Tracy would somehow haul his junked race car back to the pits, but it was hopeless as Tracy was done for the day. Tracy would blame teammate Carpentier for the incident, which is a questionable statement at best. The following restart was actually clean, as the field spread out with Ryan Hunter-Reay still in the lead, Patrick Carpentier still in second, and Michel Jourdain Jr. in third. After about 20 laps, there'd be yet another incident. Former F1 driver Gaston Mazzacane, making his debut in the series, would end his day in almost the exact same spot as Tracy. Mazzacane's car would get a bit of airtime, but he was thankfully okay. The next restart would lead to the longest green flag run of the day, but there still wasn't much going on outside of occasional passes here and there. We were teased as Michel Jourdain went for a move on Patrick Carpentier, but that didn't amount to much. Just as the commentators mentioned how Hunter-Reay's lead had broken the 15-second mark, a series of pit stops started, with a running order remaining pretty much the same afterward. On lap 187, Mario Dominguez would nearly crash in turn 4, and shortly after, a debris caution would come out. The broadcast never said what the debris was, but it would still bring the yellow out. During the pit stops, the biggest issue for Ryan Hunter-Reay would rear its ugly head. The guy in charge of spraying the side of the car with water to dilute the ethanol spilt on the side of the car during refueling accidentally sprayed Ryan's head. It didn't really affect him much, but that had to have sucked driving the rest of that race soaked in water and 50-degree temperatures. It didn't really affect his performance though. If anything, it probably made him drive a little quicker. Another debris caution came with 34 laps to go, but that didn't change much. For a majority of this race, Hunter-Reay, Carpentier, and Jourdain were the only cars on the lead lap, and thanks to the lap cars in the way, they were pretty far away from each other. Shortly after Roberto Gonzalez's car burst into flames, another Mexican's day would come to an end. It was Rodolfo Levin who hit the outside wall of turn 4, ending a breakout performance for him 2 laps earlier than it should have. The race would end under the yellow flag, as Ryan Hunter-Reay was able to round off a flag-to-flag victory. It was his second win in the series, and his first on an oval. The top top 3 of Hunter-Reay, Carpentier, and Jourdain were the only cars on the lead lap. My thoughts on this race are a bit of an enigma even to myself. Was it boring? Yeah. I mean, there wasn't a lot of passing, and the battle for the lead was about as fun as dealing with Time Warner Cable back when they were still a thing. But I can't say the race bored me to death either. It's just one of those races you put on in the background while trying to get some work done. It's not so boring that you passed out on your keyboard, but it's really not a race that people would look back on fondly either. Unless you're a Ryan Hunter-Reay fan, that is, in which case you'd probably like this race. Other than that, there's nothing else to say. Thank you for watching, and have a great afternoon.